Obamacare under attack. Will it survive? First, Obamacare architect Jonathan Gruber calling Americans stupid.
Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass.
And today, House Republicans filing a lawsuit against the administration over the implementation of Obamacare. And Representative Aaron Schock joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta. Good to be with you.
Why now? The House leadership has been threatening this for months.
Well, the House, as you know, took a vote this past summer to sue the president for violating the law that he passed into effect. Interestingly, there were more members of Congress that voted to sue the president than actually voted to pass Obamacare when it was voted on. So there was an overwhelming majority that said the president has violated this law. And really, we're following the Constitution. There's three branches of government, and if and when the judicial, or if and when the executive and the legislative branch get into a dispute, and the executive branch is not carrying out that which the legislative branch passed, then we go to the courts to referee the dispute. And that's really the Speaker's office has taken their time, their due diligence the last couple of months of interviewing firms that would be the best to represent the House of Representatives, and so now the court case has been filed.
Who's paying and how much are you paying the lawyer?
Well, I don't know how long this drags on. I mean, my experience with having to hire attorneys myself is that usually it's done by some kind of retainer and a billable hour. But I think the better question is how much money has been spent not only complying with Obamacare, but more importantly, with the president's illegal changes to the law once it's been enacted. Remember, there's been new rules after new rules on individuals, on businesses, and the insurance companies as HHS has changed the rules in the middle of the game. And that's really what this lawsuit is about, is to push back on the president arbitrarily changing his own law, which is cost hundreds of millions of dollars to the private sector and to hardworking taxpayers.
And I can see that fees can some seem chump change to a giant statute, but I just have a little bit of a thing about when there are so many lawyers on Capitol Hill and all these offices, and maybe the ethics rules won't permit you to use a lawyer inside one of the offices. Well,
I would prefer not to have to hire an attorney. Nobody wants to do this, Greta, but what do you do when you have a chief executive who's gone rogue?
All right. Now, as I understand this statute, I'll leave that question out there hanging. As I understand this statute is that a statute was passed, Obamacare, and whether you liked it or you didn't like it, it was passed. And then what happened was is that the president, when he didn't like something in it, for instance, he wanted to give corporations, large corporations, longer time to comply with providing health insurance, that he unilaterally put things on hold. And so by doing that, he changed the statute and undermined the intent of the statute. And that really is sort of where the lawsuit is that he changed it.
Exactly.
He's not enforcing as the executive, the statute you all passed, whether you like it or not.
Correct. And Greta, the important fact here is there were very few things actually spelled out in Obamacare. For those who've taken the time to read the 2,500-page bill, most of it says that it shall be determined through rulemaking. For example, adequate health care coverage will be deemed by the HHS secretary. So in other words, Obamacare doesn't even spell out what adequate health care coverage is, okay? So there's a lot of things that the Democrats, when they passed this, gave great leniency to the president and the administration to change the rules, to come up with rules and have the latitude to make changes to them. But there were some things that were spelled out that were ironclad and not negotiable and not changeable once it passed into law. And the individual and the corporate penalties and requirements to provide adequate health care coverage once it was required, that wasn't negotiable. That's something he can't just wake up and say, well, gee, it's not working, so I'm going to unilaterally be king and do it by myself.
All right, well, we have 30 seconds. If you prevail, is this the end of Obamacare, or is this just chop off parts of it?
Well, I think not only does it chops up parts of it, it doesn't repeal the law. It basically forces the president to implement the law as it was written. But more importantly, it proves the point that the Congress has standing. That's really the issue here. And I think it will play into what we do on immigration with what he's just done illegally with an executive order, pushing back on him trying to do through executive powers that which he's frustrated the legislative branch hasn't done. So it's really kind of pushing back to put him back in the executive branch, not in the legislative branch, where he seems to want to control everything.
And you mentioned the term standing, which is something for another day, which is obviously extremely important because unless Congress has standing, you're going to get bounced out of court. But we'll save that for another day. Congressman, thank you, sir.
Good to be with you.